I am planning to play every Final Fantasy game. There is a list down below. If you look in the, I guess the About section or whatever, of all the games that are definitely going to be on the list. But we're also doing community goals with the channel points to add more things to the list. Like, for instance, we had a community goal that got met yesterday, which was that I'm actually going to play Final Fantasy 1 a second time with a party of the chat's choosing, well, of the Discord's choosing. And the Discord, they met that goal yesterday, so after I finish beating all the bosses this time through, we're going to play through it again, this time with the party chosen by Discord. And last night, Discord chose that we would be playing through with a party of entirely monks. So it's going to be the monkeys. So we're going to do an all-monk challenge run after this playthrough. And there'll be more things like that. Like right now there are some other community goals up to add Final Fantasy Adventure and Final Fantasy Legend 1 to the list. They're not actually Final Fantasy games, but they got the name of the title, you know. They're actually the beginning of the Secret of Mana and the Saga series. But if people want to spend their bananas, we'll add it to the list. The list is already very long. It's over 20 games. I don't know the exact number we ended up on. Because, you know, it's Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Mystic Quest, Tactics, Advanced Tactics, A2, 10, 10-2, Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, 7 Remake, 12, 13, 13-2, Lightning Returns. 14 is a possibility. It's going to end up being a community goal, which will likely get met, so we'll probably end up doing 14. 15. By the time we get there, 16 will be out, so 16. And there's more, too. I mean, just off the top of my head, those are all on the list. So yes, we're going to be playing all the Final Fantasies. Except for 11. We're not going to do 11. And I'm playing them in release order. Like, and by release order, I mean we're playing them in the order that the original version of the game was released. So Final Fantasy 1, then 2, then 3. I think that list below is in the right order. I'm not 100% on that, but I think it is. So we're basically going to start with all the old ones and move our way through the history of Final Fantasy. Mystic Quest is not really a Final Fantasy game. Mystic Quest is a Final Fantasy game, technically. It's not in the main series, but Mystic Quest was the first Final Fantasy game created specifically for, like, a non-Japanese market. They made it for, you know, like Americans, and they figured we were dumb, so it's like baby's first Final Fantasy. It's like Final Fantasy with training wheels and bumpers, you know. But it is a Final Fantasy game. Final Fantasy Legend and Final Fantasy Adventure are not actually Final Fantasy games. They are... Final Fantasy Adventure is Second Densetsu, which is the first Secret of Mana game. Secret of Mana is actually Second Densetsu 2. But when they brought it over to the States, they named it Final Fantasy Adventure because they figured, hey, you guys like Final Fantasy and you don't know what Secret of Mana is, so we're going to name this Final Fantasy Adventure and people will buy it because it has the word Final Fantasy on it, and you people are dumb and don't know any better. So they named it Final Fantasy Adventure to make it sell better. Didn't really work out. But anyways, so Final Fantasy Adventure is the first Secret of Mana game. Final Fantasy Legend, Final Fantasy Legend 2, and Final Fantasy Legend 3 are actually the first games in the Saga series, like Unlimited Saga, Romancing Saga, those games. And it's the exact same thing when they brought it over to North America and Europe. They were like, you know what? Let's just put Final Fantasy on there. It'll sell better if it says Final Fantasy. So they just changed the name, but it's not a Final Fantasy game. I think Final Fantasy Tactics came out after Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if I sorted them if they were on the same year. Like I did it by year, and some of them came out the same year, and I didn't really look into the month yet. I was gonna be more specific when we get closer, but let's see. Final Fantasy VII. I'm curious. Why not? Came out in 1997. It was released in January 97. It was the beginning of the year. Final Fantasy Tactics. Came out in 97, but it came out in June in 97. So yeah, Tactics came after Final Fantasy VII, but they came out the same year. In Japan, at least. We didn't get it till 98 here in North America, but I was going by like the initial release. So basically by when they were created, right? And both of them came out in 97 in Japan. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII should be before Tactics, you're right. When I looked at the list initially, I literally just went by year, so they were both on 97, I put them together. But we'll make sure to get it right by the time we get there. You know, I pay more attention to the games as I get closer to them. Like right now, you know, I don't really have to do much planning for the all monk run. I don't think that's gonna be that difficult. There's not much thought that's gonna have to go into it, because like with monks, you level up to get stronger. You don't get any gear really, and you just attack. Outside of some items we could get, like Giant's Gloves, obviously, and AoE healing staves and stuff. There's not gonna be much thought to the monk run, so I don't have to worry about that one too much. So I'm sort of planning on the Final Fantasy II run right now, which will be next week most likely. I'm not going to get through all the bonus dungeons tonight in this. There's just too many. I've never done the final bonus dungeon, the one they added in the PSP remake. I haven't done it before, so I have no idea how long that'll take me. I'm trying to get through all of the Game Boy Advance bonus dungeons tonight, and if I can accomplish that, then tomorrow night will be the PSP bonus dungeons, and ooh, what was that? And whenever we get around to Zephyr Cape, look at that, 114 evasion. Also need to check. You were still better off with the equipment on. At a certain level, I think he'll actually be better off naked, but not yet. Final Fantasy II is not going to be a big grind because we're going to be playing the PSP version, and you don't need to grind in the PSP version. Where are the stairs on this map? I'm going in circles here. They've actually improved the mechanics of Final Fantasy II quite a lot in the PSP release. You can play through it pretty much without grinding at all. The whole like stopping to fight your own party members and everything is just completely unnecessary in the newer releases of Final Fantasy II. Actually quite a fun game actually at this point. The leveling system basically works the same way as things like, you know, Skyrim or Fallout work, where just whatever you do, you get better at, right? The basic premise. Why can I not find the stairs on this floor? I am so lost. Here you go, Oblivion. Same thing. You do the skill, you get better at it. That's how it works in Final Fantasy II. Ooh, is this the right way? There it is. Thank God. Alright, 4-3. I was actually talking about possible challenge runs for Final Fantasy II, and honestly, like, quote-unquote, the normal kind of things that I would do for a quote-unquote challenge run are actually going to make the game easier in the case of Final Fantasy II. Like, if I did a solo run where I don't use any weapons or armor, the game would actually be significantly easier, because the one character would take all the attacks, the one character would have to do all the attacking, the one character would very quickly get lots of HP and evasion, and because I wasn't using any weapons, he would just be training up his fists, and fists actually become ridiculous in that game. So if you just go with like a solo monk run in Final Fantasy II, you'll just dominate the game for the most part. Which is kind of funny. You'll basically over level very quickly. There's a lot of like conventional JRPG logic that is actually detrimental to you in Final Fantasy II. Like, wearing armor actually makes you level your HP less. You know, for instance. There aren't that many bosses in Final Fantasy II that are very resistant to physical damage. And if they were, you could still just cast magic at them. I didn't say you couldn't cast magic. And everybody in Final Fantasy II could cast magic. But even if you took magic away, I can't think of a boss that you can't just beat physically. I think you could just kind of punch your way through the game for the most part. You'll be doing so much damage, you'll probably punch through their high defense. Like, I bet you if you... I've done this before where, like, I did the punch run, and, like, early game, like, the first big dungeon, there's a chest with an adamantoise that jumps out at you, and it has a tendency to kill people playing it for the first time sometimes. Usually adamantoise has like crazy good physical defense, right? And the trick to it that you usually use is there's like Arctic winds or whatever in there, so you can like, you know, adamantoise is almost always weak to blizzard in all the Final Fantasy games, and you can take them out pretty quickly with that. But if you're doing like a monk run and you've been leveling up your fists, you basically one-shot him with enough damage to kill him twice over right through his defense. Yep. And that's without grinding. Before I go, I think I'll test the power of Excalibur on you! It's Gilgamesh! Of course it is. I forgot we were on floor 5. I just gotta wait for a minute. I want to hear the music. Alright, Gilgamesh. I probably want to just, like, get some defense going. He's gonna hit like a truck. I want to move the white robes up at some point. Love the music. Oof. I'm gonna protect myself against his strong physical attacks if I can, and then start buffing. Nice. What should you do with the heal staff? Pitiful. Pitiful. Monk's got this on his own. Excalibur! Oh, man. Monk does have this on his own. Goodbye, Gilgamesh. I feel like he didn't use any of his big attacks. Genji gloves! You hear a lock spring in the distance. Now, what do Genji gloves do in this one? I mean, they're better defense and evasion. Is Dragon Nail really the best we have? Other people can wear them too. Not you. Not you. Okay. I'll give you Genji gloves. There should be a way out here somewhere now. We actually have to go through this dungeon twice. It's only 20 floors instead of 40 like the last one. But the 20th floor has 2 bosses on it. You can only fight 1 each time, so you gotta come down twice. Which means we're gonna fight Gilgamesh twice, because he's gonna be on floor 5 both times. We'll get us that compare Genji gloves, probably. I'm guessing. That might be a fun run to do in Final Fantasy II as like a challenge run. Do like a no shop run where you have to get all your stuff from item drops. Final Fantasy II was the first Final Fantasy where monsters dropped items, and they dropped them pretty generously for the most part. Here we go. Oh, no. So they're on the right. Alright, floor 6. I hate using speed up so much, but honestly, if I haven't been using speed up, we'd still be on like Hellfire Chasm right now. These dungeons take so long, but like 90% of that time is just dealing with all the random battles. Which sadly take absolutely no thought. I can literally just hold down X and the speed button and we win. We come out just fine on the other end, because like the random battles in these things are just weak. E7. Wonder how Deadshire is doing tonight in Dragon Quest II. She's getting near the end. I think she was looking for the last sigil or 2. Last I checked. I don't know that she's gonna beat it tonight though. She probably won't beat it tonight. But I don't know. She theoretically could. She's never played it before though. For those who are new to the channel, Deadshire Cat is my wife. She also streams on Twitch, and she's doing like a retro video game history thing on her channel where she's just playing. She started in like 1986 or 87, and she's just playing like every major RPG for each year and just going year by year. Instead of doing like a series like I'm doing, she's doing literally like a time period, right? I think she's in 87 or 88 right now. She's got a couple games planned from each year, and she's just gonna go through all of them. She keeps adding more games to the list too. She's gonna be at it for years. Which, I mean, nothing wrong with that. Boom. B9. Alright. One more floor and we get another boss. And like that, when we get down to B20, where the final bosses of this dungeon are, they're probably the hardest bosses outside of whatever they added in the PSP version. I don't know what's in the new bonus dungeon, but the two bosses at the end of this one are very hard. That's why I kind of went out of order on these. Theoretically, this is the one that's tied to the water crystal, which you would think would be easier than the one tied to Tiamat. But, it is generally, but not the final bosses. Yay, Hermes shoes. Aha! Alright, B10. B10 should be home to the next Final Fantasy V boss. There he is. I'll move the items up. Yeah, there's a bunch of items I'd like to move up, honestly. White robes for casting in Viscera. Hermes shoes for casting Protect. Oh, sorry, for casting Haste. Those are probably the big ones. For boss fights, at least. All the different curtains, but I don't want to track them all down. We'll find them if we need them. Another item that can cast Heal. These can all cast... The Healing Staff and the Healing Helms can cast Heal, and the Rune Staff heal with. Ilara. Yeah, it's fine. Alright.